Happy Sabbath. Today is February 24, 2018, and we're going to continue with our studies, specifically studying about the preparation day and the day of the Lord, right? The preparation day and the day of the Lord. And this is in reference to the line of the parable of the 10 virgins and also the line of the Millerites. So we need to study, because we need to set up what we're eventually heading to is studying the waymark of sunset. But to understand waymark of sunset, we need to study about preparation day and the day of the Lord, right? Okay, let's see. Let's go back just to go back to where we were last week. All right. Okay. This is the line that we've set up, and to study, to figure out what is the line for the priest, because we know there's priests and there's Levites and there's also Nethinims, right? And the priests and the Levites, they're Jews, okay? But there's two different kind of Jews. There's Levites and priests. Now the priests, we know when we're talking about the priests, there is a time of sunset. And for the time of the sunset, right? Time of sunset, for the line of the priest, we showed that it happens at 9/11, right? There's a sunset at 9/11, okay? And if not sunset at 9/11, and this is 6 hours afterwards, this is midnight, right? 6 hours after midnight is sunrise, right? Sunrise. This is sunrise, okay? So this is midnight, because for the wise virgins, they have had enough oil at midnight, right? When you have enough oil, means obviously you don't need any more oil. And because of that, your character is perfect. You are ready for the harvest. You're binding off time. You are bound for harvest, right? This is where they're being bound off for harvest, right? This is where the priests are bound for harvest, up until the midnight cry, okay? All right, this is the line that we basically established for the priests. And if we say that this is sunset, sunset is a beginning of what? When we have sundown worship, it's a beginning of what? A new day, right? It's the beginning of the new day, right? And the beginning of a new day. So, okay, let's continue, right? Yeah. Okay, let's continue to here. The Sabbath will be, this is where we ended last week. The Sabbath will be the great test of loyalty. For it is the point of truth especially controverted, when the final test shall be brought to bear upon men. What is the final test? The greatest test of loyalty. It is the final test. It's the Sabbath test, right? It is the final test that will be brought to bear upon men. Then the line of distinction will be drawn between those who serve God and those who serve Him not. While the observance of the false Sabbath in compliance with the law of the state, contrary to the fourth commandment, will be an avowal of allegiance to a power that is in opposition to God, the keeping of the true Sabbath in obedience to God's law, right, is an evidence of loyalty to the Creator, all right? So that's the keeping of the true Sabbath. The keeping of the true Sabbath is at the end of the preparation. Remember, this is sunset, and this is the day of preparation, right? At the end of the day of preparation is the end of probation, okay? All right, yeah. And there's going to be a test given that tests you. What does it test you? on whether you're going to keep the Sabbath? What is the test? That you have prepared. The test is not whether you're going to keep the Sabbath. The test is whether you've prepared for Sabbath. You've done your preparation here, right? Okay, that's the test. That's the Sabbath test, right? We have to make sure we completely understand that. That the test, the Sabbath test, is not whether you're going to go to church on Sabbath, right? The test is whether you've actually prepared everything that is required for you to keep the Sabbath, right? All while one class, by accepting the sign of submission to earthly powers, received the mark of the beast, the other, choosing the token allegiance to divine authority, received the seal of God. We know that's in Sunday law. So we know that there's a Sunday law here that happens at midnight for the priests, right? Because they're being tested. It's their Sabbath here. They have to enter upon the Sabbath because the Sabbath is the end of the preparation day, the end of your probation time. You know, the preparation is linked together with probation. Okay? All right. Okay, so we'll continue, right? In the typical service at the time of the ancient Israel, only those who had come before God with confession and repentance. They had to confess and repent, right? And whose sins through the blood of the sin offering were transferred to the sanctuary. It was transferred to the sanctuary. They had to kill a lamb. They had to repent. They have to kill that lamb, and they have to put the sins, right, into the sanctuary. Had a part in the service of the Day of Atonement. Because what happens at the Day of Atonement? So every day they had to kill a lamb, and the blood of that lamb is put onto the sanctuary, right? How is it done, right? They sacrifice in the courtyard, right? It's in the courtyard, they sacrifice it, and then they kill the lamb, and the lamb is burned on the altar. And what does the priest have to do? He has to wash his hands and his feet, right? Right, in the courtyard. And then the blood is taken into the holy place, and it is sprinkled on the what? On the veil, right? And then once a year at the Day of Atonement, what happens? What happens at the Day of Atonement? God's people have to afflict their souls, right? They have to afflict their souls. They have to repent, and they cannot eat, and they cannot work, right? And then they choose 2 rams, right? 2 unblemished rams, right? And they throw, what do? They throw? They throw lots of which of the rams that they're going to kill, right? And they kill that lamb, and then they they first transfer the sins of the people onto that lamb, and then they kill that lamb. And then they take that and they go to the most holy place, and they cleanse the most holy place. Right. And now what do? They take away the sins of the people. And who do they transfer the sins to? The scapegoat, right? The scapegoat. All right. And then that scapegoat is taken away by who? A strong man, a fit man, right? And taken to the desert. And that the fit man comes back, and he has to wash himself because he's been defiled. He's touched that scapegoat that's full of, right? So that's the Day of Atonement. Right? Yeah. So in the great day of final atonement and investigative judgment, the great day of final atonement and investigative judgment, the only cases considered are those of the professed people, right? So when the investigative judgment happened, when did the investigative judgment happen? When did it first start? In 1844. It was for the good people or the bad people? It's only for the good who have died, right? Right. The judgment and the wicked is a distinct and separate work and takes place a later period. Judgment must begin at the house of God. And if it first begins, so it has to happen first in the house of God, right? So if this is the work of perfecting character and this is sanctification, what happens here then? In the first test. What happens in the first test? There's a confession and repentance. What is that? When you confess and repent, what do? What happens to you? You're justified. All right? All right. You're justified, and then here, you're sanctified. Okay? Because you continue to walk and obey God's law, you're sanctified. Right? You don't want to sin. You've given up. You try to work on your sin problem. Right? By the grace of God and the power that's given to you, you are going to be sanctified. And then, after the crisis, you are glorified, right? That's why you receive your reward, your immortality, and your character is revealed here. So that's the three-step test here, okay? Right? But when is the investigative judgment starting then? It starts right there. So investigative judgment for the what now? So if this is 9/11, investigative judgment at 9/11 starts for who? In 1844, it was for the righteous dead. But at 9/11, investigative judgment starts for who? The righteous living, right? Because that's when the Holy Spirit is being sprinkled, right? And then during your time of investigative judgment, you have to be working to perfect your character. You have to have, it's like a final atonement, and it's the final atonement and investigative judgment of the Day of Atonement. This is when you realize that you have to afflict your souls, right? You have to afflict your souls. Okay. All right. Then we realize here that when you are coming to the end of probation, the end of probation is also called the harvest. And when the wheat and the tares are going to be harvested, who are bound first? The tares are bound first. After the tares are bound, they are made ready for them to be burned. After that, then the wheat are bound. Because the tares are bound here first, right? Because they have not been working in the perfection of the character. They have not been sanctified. They are bound here, right? They're bound first. And then the wheat are bound. Okay? Now we're going to continue. All right. And when you read the Leviticus 23, right? Leviticus 22, verse 32. And it shall be a Sabbath. Now the Day of Atonement will be a Sabbath. It's a Sabbath of rest. And ye shall afflict your souls in the 9th day of the month at even. From even unto even. So here's even. Even is what? Is sunset, right? So from even to even shall you keep and celebrate your Sabbath, right? From even to even. So this is the beginning of even. So you keep your even from the beginning of, that's from sunset, okay? All right. You start afflicting your soul. Okay, so now we continue, right? We continue now to see what happens at the Passover, okay? We went from atonement, the Day of Atonement, now we go to the Passover. Because there's a lamb that is chosen, all right? Now, that lamb is who? We know that the Passover lamb is who? It's Jesus, okay? Jesus, Isaiah 53, verse 6 and 7. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way. And the Lord hath laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and a sheep before her shearers is dumb. So he opened not his mouth. Okay. So now we're going to do the line of Jesus. Jesus is the Passover lamb. All right? Okay. Now at the Passover, now think about the Passover. Right? What day is the Passover now? The 14th day of the first month. What happened with Jesus and his disciples on the 14th of the first month at even? Jesus said, prepare the dinner, right? Prepare for the Passover, right? You have to find the lamb. So the lamb was chosen at even. It was killed at even. So the typical lamb was killed at even, right? Because that typical lamb is going to be eaten at the Passover. What about the anti-typical lamb? Who's the anti-typical lamb? It's Jesus. When will Jesus be killed? Here at midnight cry. Okay? But the lamb was killed right there because it was going to be eaten at the Passover. Okay? So then they went up and had a Passover, the Last Supper. It's called the Last Supper, right? What did they do at the Last Supper? They had a foot washing. They had a communion, right? Okay, they had a foot washing, and what else did they do? They had to eat the bread, and then they drank wine. So they had a foot washing, and they had to eat bread, and they drank wine. And then after that, what happened? Jesus revealed who? Judas was revealed, right? Judas was revealed. Isn't that the tares? Right here. Do you see that Judas was revealed right there? Right? Because this is this Passover. They were eating and they were drinking and they had their feet washed. Right here. Right? They were perfecting their character. Right? Yeah, here. And then Judas was revealed here. Because what happened then when Judas was revealed and he stood up and walked into the night? He was getting ready to do what? To betray Jesus. Where? In Gethsemane at midnight. Because the crisis at midnight, right? This is midnight. Jesus was betrayed at midnight. Okay. All right. Now, I already, by mistake, I already put up some of the figures there. Now, Jesus, we know, dies on the cross here. But what happened between the time that he was betrayed by Judas and the time that he was on the cross? He was gathered by the mob, right? How many tribunals did he go through, right? Don't answer that. We're going to go through it right now, all right? Okay? You're going to count how many tribunals, right? So they captured Jesus, right? And with the mob, and the mob said, Jesus said, "Who are you looking for?" And what did they say? Jesus of Nazareth. Is that very good? Jesus. Did they realize that he was did they believe he was the Son of God? No. They didn't believe he was the Son of God. They were saying Jesus of Nazareth. They said, "You're just a regular man. You're just that guy that was in Nazareth before," right? Then Jesus was, he had his face shone like glory, and those people, they all fell, right? Remember? And then when the face and the angel went away, then they could all stand up. And what did Judas do? He came and kissed Jesus, right? And they bound Jesus and they took him. But remember, Peter came and cut off the ear of one of the guards, Yeah, one of the guards. And Jesus healed, right? He touched the ear. No, he touched the ear and it was healed, right? Then he was taken. And it was still nighttime, right? And where was he taken first? Whose court was he taken first? Okay. Which court? Annas. The court of Annas, right? So the preliminary trial was before Annas. And they brought two charges. What were the charges that were brought before him? Blasphemy and sedition. But which one did they bring to him? They wanted to bring him the charges of blasphemy and sedition. But which one did they actually try to prove in court? No, sedition first. Yeah. Yeah. They want to prove sedition. Okay? All right. And then after that, he was taken from Annas. He was taken to who? Whose court? No. He was taken to Caiaphas. So there, Annas and Caiaphas was at the court, right? And the Sadducees and the Pharisees were all there too, right? I got to look at my note. And they were questioning Jesus, right? And they had to bring in false witnesses, right? And then Caiaphas asked, I adjure thee by the living God, tell us whether thou be the Christ, the Son of God. And Jesus answered what? Thou hast said. And then what did he say? Nevertheless, I say unto you, here he just pronounced the judgment for Caiaphas, the leader of the church. The pronouncement of the judgment for the church, the leader of the church is pronounced here. Okay? You're going to see me when I come again. Right? All right. And then what did Caiaphas do to his clothes?
He rent his clothes.
Right, his clothes. What did he do when he actually rent his clothes? What can a priest rent their own clothes? They cannot wear rent clothes. So he pronounced his own judgment because he rent his own clothes. Right? So he actually closed his probation too. Right. Okay. All right. And then at this time, what was happening with Peter? He came with John and they were following. Right? And then he denied Jesus. Right? How many?
3 times.
Oh, 3 a time, huh? 3 times. 3 times. And then it was daytime. And then from there, they took him to another council. Now this one I kind of forgot. It's actually the council of the Sanhedrin. And then that council asked, are you Christ? Are you the Christ? And then he said, oh, and are you the Christ? Tell us. And Ellen White says like this, at last in tones of mournful pathos, he answered, if I tell you, you would not believe. And if I also ask you, you will not answer me, nor let me go. Right? Yeah. And then he added the solemn warning, hereafter shall the Son of Man sit on the right hand of the power of God. Right? And they asked, are you the Son of God? And he says, yes, I am. Right? This is where he said, yes, I am. And they cried out, yeah, what more do you need? Now, he has blasphemed, right? Because he's claiming that he's the Son of God. And this is also where they mocked him, and they slapped him, and they spat on him. And the Jews condemned him how many times? In the court of Annas, the court of Caiaphas, and in the court of Sanhedrin. They condemned him how many times? 3 times. Right. And then he was brought to who? And then he was brought to Pilate. Right? Yeah. And let's see. And Pilate asked him, are you the king of the Jews? And Jesus answered, thou sayest. Right? But could he prove that Jesus was guilty? No. Right? He can't prove that Jesus was guilty. So who did he send Jesus to? Finding out that Jesus is actually from Galilee. Hey, you know what? The Tetrarch of Galilee is here. Why don't we just send him to... I can't find him guilty. Let's send him to who? Herod. All right, so send to Herod. And that Did Herod find Jesus guilty? No, he didn't find Jesus guilty. So what did he do? Send him back to Pilate. Right? Hey, did you lose count? How many have we gone through now? 5. All right, 5. All right, Herod, finding out, he sent Jesus to Herod. No. Now Herod was sending Jesus back to Pilate. Right? Now that's number 6. Did Pilate find Jesus guilty? He cannot find Jesus guilty. Now this is the part when his wife had a vision. Right? His wife had a vision, and he sent a letter to Pilate. But the Pilate already closed his probation. Did he find Jesus guilty? No, he said, no, I can't find. And he wanted to wash his hands. Right? And then Jesus was sent in front of the who? All the people. Right? And then they asked him. Right? Pilate asked, let's release Barabbas. Because these people, they're not going to choose Barabbas. There's no way they're going to choose Barabbas. For sure they're going to choose Jesus. Right? So he says, then he asked them, are you going to choose?
From Pilate goes
to the people. So the people were the ones that condemned. They chose Barabbas. So how many tribunals did he go through? Why is it 7? Why is 7 so crucial? Not only that, but it's the day of the Lord. This is the preparation day. This is the preparation day from here to midnight is a preparation day. And here's the day of the Lord. That's the day of the Lord right there. Right? And then he was crucified. Right? He was crucified. Why is it at midnight cry? Why is it midnight cry? Was somebody crying at midnight? Who was it that cried?
Mary was crying.
And who else was crying? Judas. He cried with a loud groaning voice. Right? He's not guilty. And then he threw his coins. And then what? And the priest and the scribes, they did not care about him. And what did he do? He hanged himself. Right? That's why this is the midnight cry. Right? Okay, so now we got this line. Right? So the Passover lamb was killed here. The typical Passover lamb, so that they can eat here, have the Passover dinner. And the anti-typical Passover was betrayed here and then killed here. Right? 7 tribunals. Right? Wow, it's incredible. You see the lines; it just all fits. All right. What about the 10 virgins? The 10 virgins are watching in the evening of this earth history. All claim to be Christians. All have a call, a name, a lamp, and all profess to be doing God's service. All apparently waiting for Christ's appearing. All 5 were unready. 5 will be found surprised, dismayed outside the banquet hall. Right? They went forth. They went forth to the house of the bride. At what time? At sunset. Right? And then they had to wait and wait and wait and wait. One group had a certain sleep of kaseudo sleep. They were dead. Right? They were spiritually dead. But another had a slumbering, and they slumbered and they slept. But they had a death, which is called a koimao type of death. It is that they were death to self. They were dying to self. They wanted to get more light. All right? There is 2 types of sleeping. So don't think that the wise and the foolish had the same type of sleep. They had different types of sleep. All right? Okay. All right? But 5 were unready. And at the time that they were woken up, the crisis is at midnight. Right? Yeah. The crisis was at midnight because then they had to go to the procession and find out that the door was closed right there. for the foolish. Right. Okay. So that's the line of the virgins, right? The working on and the perfecting of character has to be done before midnight. Yeah. Before the close of probation. The close of probation is the harvest. This is the harvest, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, we got, this is how we study line upon line, right? Put another line.
Right.
Yes.
See, on this court, the last court is the people. They were the one who decided, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the present spiritual Israel, we are, did Ellen White not say anything about with the people giving the judgment? And for us, who are spiritual Israel, at the end of time, are basically the one who asked for the Sunday law.
That's right. They're the ones that ask for the Sunday law. They're actually asking for Barabbas, right? Because they already chose a different son of God. They're the ones asking for the Sunday law, right? Because at midnight, first they're going to take the wise priests and they're going to take them to the leaders of the church. And then they're going to take them to the leaders of the government, right? Right. And then the people are going to decide, right? Yeah. Okay. Right. So the wise and the foolish virgins, right? So the time of if this is the investigative judgment, when is the executive judgment? That's the executive judgment right there, right? That's their door is closed. For the priest, remember this is for the priest. Then we're going to have for Levites will be different, right? And then we're going to have for the world, which is the Nethinims, that's going to be different. Their time is the same, but it's almost like they're in a different time zone, right? This happens first for the priest, right? Okay, all right. Now we go to Acts of the Apostles, right? The apostle realized that the gospel had a claim upon whoever might listen to his words, right? That one day they would stand either among the pure and the holy around the great white throne, and with those to whom Christ would say, "Depart from me, ye that work iniquity." There's going to be a gospel, right? When was the gospel first preached? When was the gospel first preached ever?
At the Garden of Eden.
The Garden of Eden. Where? Genesis 3:15, right? Right. We will also know the everlasting gospel is preached unto this world by who? The three angels, right? And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven having the everlasting gospel. The three angels' message is the everlasting gospel, but it was first preached at Eden. Okay, right? Right. And it's at the three angels' message is 3. That's why the gospel is a 3-step process, right? We always call it the gospel is a 3-step process: justification, sanctification, glorification. First angel's message, second angel's message, third angel's message. All right? Right. He declared that there would surely come a day of judgment when all would be rewarded according to the deeds done in the body, and when it would be plainly revealed the wealth, position, and titles are powerless to gain for men the favor of God to deliver him from the results of sin. He showed that this life is a time of preparation. In this life, it's a time of preparation for the future life. Should he neglect present privileges and opportunities, he would suffer an eternal loss. No new probation would be given him. No new probation. You finish your close of probation, that's it. No new probation. Okay. So we're going to do another line here about the gospel, right? The gospel and the covenant. Okay. The gospel was first preached Genesis 3:15, right? And then when was the gospel repeated to one of the fathers of Israel, right? To Abraham, right? Genesis 15 verse 5. Look now toward heaven and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto them, so shall thy seed be, right? The seed, right? Seed. Okay, the seed be. Now the thing about it is, what happens to the seed, which is God's people? God's people rejected God, right? They rejected God, all right? Remember in the story of Samuel. Samuel was told, okay, you know what? God's people now wants their own king. They now reject God as their king, and now they want their own king. You know? Samuel what here? 1 Samuel 8 verse 7. They have rejected me, right? For they have not rejected you, Samuel. They have rejected me. Okay? So when was that? When they elected a king, right? And what's his name? Saul. All right? And how many kings until the kingdom was divided into three? How many kings were there? There was Saul, David, and Solomon. After that, the kingdom was divided into two. Right? Yeah. And those two kingdoms, they continued to rebel against God. They were in their probation time, but they continued to rebel. Right? They're in probation time, starting with the time of Saul. Okay. And the northern kingdom were taken away. And then after that, the southern kingdom was taken away to Babylon. When was the southern kingdom first taken to Babylon? In whose reign? No. Jehoiakim, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. There was the boys were taken away at the time of Jehoiakim, right? And there was another taking away at the time of Jehoiachin. And then there's the last taking away at the time of Zedekiah. There was three kings, all right? The time Jehoiakim, Jehoiachin, and Zedekiah, all right? That's the three last kings of Judah. These were the three first kings of Israel, all right, before it was separated. And then now the three last kings of Judah, right, they were taken away to Babylon. 1, 2, 3, all right? Okay. But they realized, you know what? God realized that they're going to go to... Daniel knew that they were only going to be in Babylon for how many years? How many years?
70 years.
They knew. He knew because he was studying the book of Jeremiah. He says, well, you know what? We're going to go to Babylon only 70 years. After 70 years, we're going to go back. Right? Right. We're going to go back when? With the 3 decrees. Cyrus, Darius, and Artaxerxes. There's going to be 3 decrees, right? And then we're going to rebuild Jerusalem. We're going to rebuild the temple, and we're going to rebuild the walls and the roads, and we're going to rebuild the city. All right? Okay? All right. The 3 decrees. Okay. All right, let's see. Okay, I've got to do this very carefully. I got my animation. I have to be synchronized with my animation here. Okay. What's next? Oh. All right. Now here's the covenant. The covenant was given here. The covenant was repeated here. There's a time of probation, right? And then when they came out of Babylon at the time of Artaxerxes, that was the beginning of another probation for the Jews again, right? And they were given probation for how many years? 70 weeks. 70 weeks is how many years? 490 years. And at the last week, in the middle of that last week, Jesus was crucified, right? So Jesus was this is the last, from here to here is 69 weeks, right? In the middle of the week, he was crucified. And this was when Stephen was stoned, right? So the judgment for the probation for the leaders closed here. And then for the nation closed here. But the close of the door was when? It was completely closed to them. 70 AD. When Jerusalem was burnt, right? And the temple was burnt, destroyed. Not one stone on top of another. There you go. Not one stone on top of another. It was burnt. Okay? All right. Now, why am I doing all of this? Because there's a pattern that we're going to see here. Right? There's a big pattern here. How did Daniel know that they were going to go to Babylon only for 70 years? Why did he know that? What did he know? He knew that for every 7 years, you have to let the Sabbath rest for how many years? You have to land rest for how many years? 1 year. 1 year. All right? For 1 year. You had to let the land rest for seven. It's Leviticus 26, right? You have to let the land rest for 1 year. Now, if you don't let the land rest for 1 year, what happens to that land? What happened to you? You have to leave that land and let that land rest, right? So you have to leave that land for 70 years. Why do they have? So in other words, their probation was, if they had to leave for 70 years, it means they were in the time of probation for how many years? 490 years. If they were 490 years, they were in probation. They were in probation from the time of Saul. The time of Saul was 1097. He was anointed at 1097. And when did Daniel go at the time of Jehoiakim? 490 years later, right? At 607, right? They did not let the land rest for 490 years, right? That's 70 weeks. So that's why they had to go to Babylon for how many years? 70 years. From 607 to 537. That's when they went out. At the time of who? Zerubbabel. At the first decree. Okay? And at the third decree, they said, okay, you can go back to Jerusalem again. But I'm going to give you how many years again? I'm going to give you another 490 years. Right? 490 years. Yeah. God is so merciful, right? Yeah. Form 457. 69 weeks until here. And another week. So here. Okay, let's put the numbers down here. And that's 70 AD. Right? Let's put the numbers down. Okay. This is 490 years, right? From here to here. Okay. And this is another 490 years. From here to here. 490 years from here is their close of their probation is finished. And what happens after the close of probation? There's a Sabbath rest, right? You have a probation and a Sabbath rest for 70 years. So the land was laid desolate because where were they? They were in captivity. So the land rested. There's a Sabbath rest right here, right? There's a rest. 70 years right here. Okay? There's a probation, 490, and then there's a rest for 70. Now here's another probation. Okay, my question is, there's a probation for another 490 years, right? Where's the 70? I was looking for the 70. There's got to be a 70. Where's the 70? Here's 490, here's 70. Here's 490, where's the 70? Right there. 70 AD. Oh, what? That's 70 AD. I can't believe it. But this is actually their rest, you know. This is their close of probation here. Now, Peter asked, Lord, how many times should I forgive? 7 times. I need to forget. Is it 7? The Lord said what?
7.
No. 70 times 7. How many times did he give probation? 490 years. That's the 70 times 7.
Well, all of this figure really have a meaning.
It's meaning. Do you think Jesus said, I give you probation 70 times 7, it means something?
Yeah.
Absolutely. It means this is the 490 years. This is the 490 years right here. Yeah.
That's how God forgave.
Yeah. But even here, God said, well, you know what? Even after 70 years, why didn't he just kill them all right here? He gave another 1 generation. Why 1 generation right here? Because there were children that did not know what the sins of their fathers were. So they let the children, now, when the children that was alive here have our opportunity to decide for themselves too, right? That's why it was one generation here. Okay? All right. Wow. You know, the probation and the rest. Probation and rest. Okay? Yeah, okay, let's see. So there's the close of probation.
Can you translate that in our...
Yeah, that's what we're going to finish.
Yeah, we're going to go, you know, we're going to put it into our time here, you know. But you know what? This is how we study line upon line, right? We go all these lines. You know what? We're not done yet. How are we with time? Oh, we're
Well,
not
if
bad.
you look at that, in God, all is perfection.
Yeah.
So there's no reason why in our line it will not be perfect.
It follows perfectly of what happened before. So are we going to be confused as what's going to happen?
No.
Absolutely not. Okay. Now let's look at. Let's look at the time of Noah. Right. The righteous and the wicked will still be living upon the earth in their mortal state. Men will be planting and building, eating and drinking, all unconscious that the final irrevocable decision has been pronounced in the sanctuary above. Before the flood, after Noah entered the ark, God shut him in and shut the ungodly out. But for how many days?
7.
There you go. There's your 7 right there. The 7 days, the people, knowing that their doom was fixed. Oh, their doom was fixed before the 7 days, right? Continued their careless, pleasure-loving, and mocking the warnings of the impending judgment. Hey, there's always a mocking. So the Savior shall also, says the Savior, shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Silently unnoticed as the midnight thief. There you go, at midnight. The Son of Man is going to come at midnight. Will come the decisive hour, which marks the fixing of every man's destiny, the final withdrawal of mercies offered to guilty men. Okay, so when do you think that the door was closed? Well, Ellen White is saying what? At the time of Noah. When was the door closed at the time of Noah then? At? Midnight. That is the decisive hour. Okay? He's saying, Ellen White's saying, you know, the time of Noah is the time of the Millerites, is the time of the Jews, is the time of the 144,000. It's the same thing, right? Okay. But as the days of Noah, so shall also be the coming of the Son of Man be. For then the days that there were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall the coming of the Son be. All right, so let's put the time of Noah here. Noah was building an ark, right? Right. How many years did it take him to build an ark? The Spirit will not, what's the word? My Spirit will not, for 120 years. Yeah. Will not strive with you. Right? I'm going to strive with you for 120 years, right? But after that, my Spirit will stop striving. This is their preparation. They're preparing their ark right here, right? This is their probation. My Spirit will only strive for you 120 years. After that, it's finished. Okay? All right. Okay. But remember, there's a second test here. And this test is visual. You've got to be able to see this. There's going to be a difference. Right? It's a visual test right here, number 2. What's the visual test? Before the close of the door. What's the visual test that everybody saw? The animals came 2 by 2. They all came in 2 by 2 and 7s, right? So there's a visual test. This is when the tares manifest there. They don't believe. They saw those animals come in and they still don't believe it. This is where the tares are manifested. Okay? They're being bound off right here. The test number 2. Okay, and then when was the door closed? At midnight. No, it's not closed here yet. No. And then the people of God were tested while they were in there. Okay, for 7 days inside. Before the rain came. See, that's the testing number 3. This is when their character is manifested. But they were preparing where? They were already preparing here. So their test is what? Is that the door is that test? No. Their test is whether they prepared. Right? Okay. The door is only shows that they have prepared. And they can be shut in, right? For 7 days. And then it'll close for the world, because this is...
Not for the world, the 7 days, it's for the people inside.
Yeah. The 7 days is for the people in the ark. You're right. That's a very good one. Right? Okay. All right. You know what? We're not done yet with lines. There's, I decided we got to give more lines, okay? More lines. We got to study line upon line. Okay. Matthew 24, verse 45 to 49. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over his household, to give them meat in due season? What is meat in due season? Present truth, right? There's 2 kinds of servant. There's the wise and the evil, right? The evil, the foolish is the evil, right? Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Verily I say unto you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. But and if that evil servant shall say in his heart, what? My Lord delayeth his coming. He says, you know what? Even though that door is closed, the probation is not yet closed, actually. It's not. They don't even realize, the Lord is not going to come now. The Lord is delaying his coming. Who actually says that? Is the evil servant. He doesn't realize that the door is already closed. He shall begin to smite his fellow servants and eat and drink with the drunken. Now, this eating and drinking with the drunken, right? That's when after the door is already closed, all right? The same spirit of selfishness, of conformity to the practices of the world, exists in our days as in Noah's. Many who profess to be children of God follow their worldly pursuits with an intensity that gives the lie to their profession. They will be planting and building, buying and selling, eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the last moment of their probation. Right? So even up to the last moment your door is about to close, you're still planting and buying and selling and eat. Now, is there anything wrong with planting and eating and drinking and giving? There's nothing wrong. But the problem is that Ellen White says, but they do this in a perverted way. There's going to be a perverted eating and drinking, right? Well, when you're being a glutton. Is there going to be a perverted marriage also? Oh, yeah. Oh, we see this, right? Just before the close of probation, there's going to be perverted eating and drinking, a perverted marriage, right? They're going to be buying and selling for their own gain, right? Okay. Men are still eating and drinking, planting and building, marrying and giving in marriage. The highest excitement prevails, yet probation's hour is fast closing. In every case, it is about to be eternally decided. Satan sees that his time is short. He has set all his agencies at work that man may be deceived, deluded, occupied, and entranced. See? When the door is about to close and you're still doing all of this, it means you haven't been preparing, right? When you're kind of rushing just before the close of Friday, what are you doing? Oh, you know what? We better wake up. We got to wake up now, since we know. You can't wait until the last minute and say, okay, I'm going to open the Sabbath now. No, you can't. And we have, this is not only, we can see it from the Bible also, right? The door of mercy is all forever shut. You can't do last minute preparation, right?
That's why in your preparation, you must ask the Lord to change your character.
Mm-hmm.
Because unless your character is changed,
right,
you always forget.
Right, always forget, right? Okay. Now, how can we prove this from the Bible? How are we supposed to prepare for Sabbath? Right? We see this in Exodus 16 when they were gathering manna right here. And they gathered it every morning. Right? They were gathering why? In the morning. Why are they gathering in the morning? Every morning, every man according to his eating. And then when the sun waxed hot, it melted. So when do you do your work gathering on a Friday? In the morning. If it's sunset, it's too late. You can't be gathering. There's not even manna even at the end there. It's already melted in the midday. Okay? You gather in the morning. And it came to pass that on the sixth day they gathered twice as much bread. But they have to gather it in the what? In the morning. The two omers and one man and the rulers of the congregation came and told Moses. And he said unto them, this is what which the Lord has said. Tomorrow is the rest. Okay? See? There's a preparation and there's a rest. Tomorrow is the rest. You gather, but do you gather late? No, you can't gather late. You have to gather early. Right? Tomorrow is the rest. And then what happens after you've been gathering? Then in the afternoon, what do? You bake and you seethe, and that which remaineth over lay up for you to be kept until the morning. And they laid it up until the morning, as Moses bade, and it did not stink, neither was there any worm therein. And Moses said, eat that today, for today is a Sabbath unto the Lord. Today you shall not find it in the field. You cannot find it after the midnight, at midnight for the priest. You cannot find it on the day of rest. There's no more. There's no more oil is going to be sold on that, right? 6 days ye shall gather it, but on the seventh day, which is the Sabbath, in it there shall be none. And it came to pass that there went out some of the people on the seventh day. What? And to gather, and they found none. See, some people lightly disregard the Sabbath. So what did they do? They haven't been preparing, right? These are the people who haven't been preparing on Friday. That's why they said, what is okay? You know what? I'm going to still look for manna on the Sabbath. And they found none. And the Lord said unto Moses, how long ye refuse to keep my commandments and my laws? See, for that the Lord hath given you the Sabbath, therefore he gave you on the sixth day. the bread in 2 days, right? So on the 6th day you get a double portion. On the 7th day you got none because you already prepared. And remember, you got to prepare early, right? Okay. Well, preparation for the Sabbath is to be made all throughout the week. Friday is to be the special preparation day. Through Moses, the Lord said to the children of Israel, tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto the Lord. Bake that which ye will bake today, seethe that ye will seethe, and that which remaineth over lay up for you to be kept until the morning. And the people went about and gathered it, the manna, and ground it in mills, and beat it in mortar, and baked it in pans, and made cakes of it. So you gather in the morning, in the afternoon you bake it. Get ready on the Friday. There was something to be done in preparing the heaven-sent bread for the children of Israel. The Lord told them that this work must be done on Friday, the preparation day. Right? That work is a what? It was a test. That work that is done on a Friday is the Sabbath test. The Sabbath test is not, on the Sabbath it's not a testing day. Sabbath is not a testing day. No more testing on Sabbath, right?
Because if you're still be tested, you already violated it.
Yeah, you already violated, you're right. God desired to see whether or not, see? You are tested on a Friday on whether or not you would keep the Sabbath holy. Yeah,
That's a nice stuff.
yeah, pretty amazing, okay? Right? It has to be done on a Friday. And it has to be done, gathering is early, and then you bake it, right? Yeah. Okay, let's see here. What do I have here? Okay, let's see. So you gather on a preparation day, you gather what? Two. A double portion. What? Do you gather it late or you gather it early?
Friday.
Right. What about the wise virgins? They had the flagon and the light. Remember? They had the flagon even when they were here. They had it even early. Right? They had a flagon and a lamp. Here you have two. You have two and you have two here. Early. Okay? This is, just putting on these lines, you realize that they're all, what? They're all lining up, right? Yeah. And the evil servant is eating and drinking with the drunk up to their probation, right? Yeah. They are not collecting extra manna. They do not have extra provision of oil. They're the ones that say the Lord is delaying his coming. They're effectively pushing the close of probation. They said, oh no, what? You know what? The close of probation is here. It's not here. It's here somewhere, right? They're pushing, right? And what are they doing? They're working on Sabbath, trying to collect more manna. They think they're going to get more manna here, but they can't, right? The shop's already closed. You can't buy or sell. There's not any more work to be done. See, people who are still trying to find things to look for here, they are lightly regarding the Sabbath. Right? The second test right here is whether they have their clothing and their food prepared. Right? Right? If you have your clothing and your food prepared, is it a visual sign? Yeah, it's a visual sign. The number 2 is a visual sign. It's something that people can see, right? The animals entering the ark, that's a visual test, right? The disciples that have eaten and drank, and they have, because when the disciples, what they have to, when they were in the Lord's Supper, what did they do? They killed a lamb here, and what they wash their feet, and they eat and drink already here before midnight, right? They wash their feet. Their feet is already clean, and they already eat and drink before midnight. Okay? Wow. All right. Okay, how are we doing? Okay, let's see. Now we go to the Passover, all right? Exodus 12, verse 2 to 7. This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. Okay, the beginning of months is the first month of the year, right? For the Jews, right? And it's called Nisan. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of the month, they shall take unto them every man a lamb. So you have to find your lamb on what day? The 10th day of the first month, right? According to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house. And if the household be too little for a lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his house take it according to the number of souls. Every man according to his eating shall make their count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. Ye shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats, and ye shall keep it until the 14th day of the month. And the whole assembly of the congregation shall kill it in the evening. All right? On the evening of the 14th. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two doorposts and the upper doorpost of the house wherein they shall eat it. Right? Okay, so they have to collect the lamb on the 10th day. And then they kill the lamb on the 14th at evening, before the 14th. Okay? Before the 14th start at evening. Okay, let me go back here. And when they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire, unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. They shall eat it, right? Eat not of it raw, nor sodden all with water, but roast with fire, his head with his legs, and with the purtenance thereof. And ye shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remaineth of it until the morning ye shall burn with fire. And thus shall ye eat it, with your loins girded, and your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand. Ye shall eat it in haste. You're going to eat it with a readiness state, right? With what? Your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, your staff on your hand. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and I will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, against all the gods of Egypt. And I will do investigative judgment or executive judgment? It's executive judgment. So when the angel of the Lord comes, it's going to be executive judgment, for I am the Lord. Okay, what does it mean to have your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand? You're ready. Okay. On Friday, let the preparation for the Sabbath be completed. See that all the clothing, right, is in readiness, and that all the cooking is done. Let the boots be blacked and the baths be taken.
How are they taking baths then?
Yeah, that's the thing, yeah. Baths is a big undertaking, you know. Yeah, you can't do this big undertaking of what? Of baths in those days, right? Yeah. It is possible to do this. If you make it a rule, you can do it. The Sabbath is not to be given to repairing of garments, to the cooking of food. All right? What does it mean, repairing of garment? Is this literal or spiritual? It's both, right? And cooking of food, right? It's both. Of pleasure seeking or to any other worldly employment. Oh boy. Before the setting of the sun, before sunset, let all secular work be laid aside and all secular papers be put out of sight. Parents, explain your work and its purpose to your children, and let them share in your preparation to keep the Sabbath according to the commandments. Right?
I remember when I was a kid, the food on Sabbath is cooked on Friday.
Yeah.
And our rice are wrapped and the rice
You know, I think we should all go back to this. We should all go back to this. Right? It's time for us to really know how to keep the Sabbath, right? Yeah. No more repairing of garments. No more cooking of food. Because what? is already, on the preparation day, it's already done. It's finished before the sunset. Everything is done. Your boots, right? And your baths, right? That's why the washing of the feet was done before midnight. They already ate. Their food is already done, right?
We usually say, where's the iron?
Oh, no.
On the Sabbath morning.
Oh, boy. Ephesians 6:14 and 15. What is it to have your loins girt and your clothing? Your loins are girt about with truth. And having your breastplate is your clothing, your jacket of righteousness. So when do you have to have your righteousness and your loins girt? Repairing of garments? On Friday. Your feet shod. Your feet is what? Your boots. Your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. You already have your gospel of peace, your righteousness, and your truth when? On Friday. Right? Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will. And remember, they had their staff in their hand. Yeah? They have their staff in their hand. What does it mean to have your staff in your hand ready on Friday? The rod and thy staff, they comfort me. What is it, the rod and thy staff? What is rod and staff? Remember from Psalms 23. What is it? The love that chasteneth. Yeah? Right? What is it? You're already chastened and you're corrected. If you have the rod, what do you have already? You're already corrected and you're already chastened on the Friday. On your preparation day, you already have your rod. You're already chastened and you're already corrected. There's no more correction to be done before Sabbath. Right? Yeah. It's not at midnight that, it cannot be done at the close, midnight for the priest, but we say at sundown, right? It cannot be all done at sundown. It has to be done before. That ye may sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of the... you have to take your baths already. What is the bath? You have to be washed of the water by the word. And your clothes, what is your clothes? Your wedding garment, your righteousness, your garments of righteousness. All have to be ready on Friday. Everything makes sense? You now know exactly what it means, right? Okay. All right. All right, so let's see. What did I put here? Okay. Oh, so this is the lamb was chosen right here, right? The lamb was chosen. And then the lamb was slain here, right? And then what? Is this a visual test? Yeah, well, everybody can see this. This is a visual test. You put the blood on the post, right? It's a visual test, right? And then what do? Then you eat, right? The unleavened bread and bitter herbs, right? Because there's going to be the crisis at midnight. What's the crisis at midnight? The angel of the Lord that's coming, right? The angel of the Lord comes and kills. It's going to come. And they come and look at your house. Oh, it's okay. Your house is in order. Your house is already in order before this. That's the test, right? Because what's going to happen? Judgment. That's the executive judgment is given to the, right here, right? That's when Pharaoh's firstborn and the rest of everybody's firstborn is killed. That's the executive judgment, right? Okay. That season of distress and anguish. Oh, okay. You know what? I think I'll leave that for next week. All right? So, for us, right here, our midnight is coming up. Our midnight is coming up. We know that there's going to be a sunset. The sunset is going to be right in this time period here. We're going to refine that a little bit more, okay? Sunset is going to be right here for the priest. Remember, sunset is here. But whose sunset is this actually at 9/11? The leadership, right? Our sunset is going to be right in this time period, okay? Because this is midnight, right? We have to get everything ready, you know. Our boots have to be polished. Our food has to be all done. Our garments have to be all mended and ironed, you know. It's already have to be done, right? All we got to do is just eat right here, you know. Just like the Last Supper. All they did was they had their foot washing and they have eaten, right? Okay, right. So we still, I think, a couple more sessions of this so that we can figure out what it means for us as we prepare for our waymark that is called the sunset. Because when the sunset comes, we know midnight is close by. All right? And that is a more sure word of prophecy.